Come on in. Class is about to start.
Today, my dear?
We're doing A Course in Miracles, Chapter 2, Section 7, Cause and Effect.
So, as you can see by our previous story, we're not perfect.
So, going back to the previous section that we did last week, just to be bringing us up to speed, that last paragraph said it's hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. And then at the end, it says, all thinking produces form at some level. So I think that's a good introduction to what's going on here. Cause and effect.
Yeah. And the other thing to bring forward from our reading as a theme is that before miracle workers can perform miracles, they have to understand how much we resist being released from how we're seeing things.
Right.
Right? The fear of release. Because again, the course is just saying guilt is the only issue in your mind, and you're trying to find some way to get rid of that guilt, to heal it, and you're willing to blame anything but your thoughts. Right? And that's the whole part of making it. I'm able to. That's why there's no order of difficulty, because it's always about my thoughts.
Yeah. Everything is always about our thoughts.
Okay.
That's where all the power is. So we've also run into some things.
So I finally thought, just to summarize that. So the fear of release is, if I'm trying to solve my guilt by making the political situation as for instance, why I'm upset.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to do that, I'm just hiding that it's my own decision to be fearful.
Right.
Thinking fear is going to keep me safe.
Right.
Like I have to be aware of that political situation. Otherwise, how will I make myself safe?
Yeah, right. So let's keep on looking at fearful things.
Right. So we set that aside and say, my mind is powerful. I must have chosen fear.
Right.
I must be valuing fear as keeping me safe.
Yeah.
From what? From guilt.
From looking within.
From looking within and seeing that guilt has no cause. Why? Because there's a miracle there.
Because we are as God created us.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a very specific thought, is what I'm trying to say. Because your upset has a very specific, concrete example. And that's why miracles are concrete and specific.
Let's start with Kathy this time. Kathy, would you read the first paragraph? And feel free to comment at any point as you're reading. And then afterward, you're going to have the first crack at commenting, and then the rest of us will join in. So
or
let's
not.
go. Or not.
Comment
or not.
Or
you
not.
can always pass. Yeah.
Are you sure that wasn't one of those new iPhones that has an app that turns it into a gun? Okay. You may still cause and effect. You may still complain about fear, but you nevertheless persist in making yourself fearful. I have already indicated that you cannot ask me to release you from fear. I know it does not exist, but you do not. If I intervene between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with the basic law of cause and effect, the most fundamental law there is. I think that sentence is worth rereading. If I intervene between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with the basic law of cause and effect, the most fundamental law there is. I would hardly help you if I depreciated the power of your own thinking. This could be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. It is much more helpful to remind you that you do not guard your thoughts carefully enough. you may feel that at this point it would take a miracle to enable you to do this, which is perfectly true. You are not used to miracle-minded thinking, but you can be trained to think that way. And all miracle workers need that kind of training. That paragraph is just loaded with stuff. I mean, yeah, where you feel like you're praying for release from the fear and nothing seems to be happening. It's like, Jesus knows it doesn't exist, but I don't. And if I intervene between your thoughts and the results, I would be tampering with the basic law of cause and effect. Everything makes sense. When I'm reading that thing, the whole reason that this is so difficult for me to grasp it is because I really don't believe that I make myself as fearful as I do. Yeah. And then other times I realize that I'm afraid of everything. Yeah. And that feels very uncomfortable, so I quit thinking about it.
Sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, I've got a few rugs here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the purpose of the course, wasn't that interesting? This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course, which is to show us the power of our thought. That's why we can work miracles. Because our thoughts are extremely powerful.
That's
the whole thing is so consistent. I mean, it does not budge an inch. Yeah, right. You can argue with it all you want to, but it just is so consistent all the way through.
Yeah. So that mind watching is always what he's getting us, encouraging us to do, is look at your thoughts moment to moment. And the example I use always is I'm at dinner table with the kids. They do something that's, not etiquette that we've defined as etiquette, but they do it, and I go, oh, that's no big deal. And then they do something else, and I go, well, that's really no big deal. Until finally, I'm so upset, I yell at them, or whatever, because I'm not watching. Because whenever you're at a place where you feel it's impossible to change the situation, like this is just the way things are, that's been building for a long time.
And it's a belief that the outside thing is causing it to you, causing you to feel a certain way. And so when we just don't do anything about either changing our thoughts or the situation, that's when the blow up happens. But this is telling us, when you're in fear, know that this is fear. Remember that from the opposite page. Know first that this is fear. If you know that it's fear or anger, upset of any kind, change your thoughts.
Okay, so the example I'm using is letting these little inner fears build up until they become big ones.
Yeah.
And we don't have to let even the little ones upset us, but we need to trade that thought in for right thinking at that moment, so it doesn't build up.
Yep.
And that's why we can always be present in the peace. There's no reason for us to lose our peace.
Yeah. Miracle workers need that kind of training.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about that first paragraph? It does have a lot in it.
I was just thinking that these things pop up, and some things are just so painful. It takes a lot of courage to face them. Mm-hmm. I know in my experience, I've just had to make the decision that I'm going to sit with that discomfort or pain, regardless of how uncomfortable it is.
Great.
Every time I make that decision, it gets easier and it starts to dissipate. But as long as we continue to resist, it grows stronger.
Yeah.
So that's my thought.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that in a paragraph or two. The idea of trying to master fear.
That's the
coming
whole
up.
Thing. Like, I made up the world. I made up my fear, but Jesus, you take care of what I made up.
Yeah, right.
Don't change my thoughts. Just take care of what I made up, which is why change never comes. And you're what he just said. What I resist persists.
Yeah.
And that's its only energy, is my keeping it, thinking it's valuable.
Yeah.
right?
Yep. And not having a healthy respect for the power of our thoughts.
Yeah.
So, Connie, would you read the next paragraph, please?
Well, this may. So, no other
Wait.
comments about that? Okay, go ahead, Connie.
I cannot let you leave your mind unguarded, or you will not be able to help me. Miracle working entails a full realization of the power of thought in order to avoid miscreation. Otherwise, a miracle will be necessary to set the mind itself straight, a circular process that would not foster the time collapse for which the miracle was intended. The miracle worker must have genuine respect for true cause and effect as a necessary condition for the miracle to occur. I'm not sure I get those last two sentences. And I had an experience this morning. I don't know if this fits here, but when the last paragraph was being read, it seemed to fit. But I'm having this problem with my knee, and the pain has been really, it's been getting better. But I woke up with the pain in the middle of the night, and I was with the pain, and all of a sudden I thought, this pain is not in my knee, it's my broken heart.
Oh.
And I said that to myself because I had shared with Jan and Timothy, Tuesday is not only election day, it's the first year anniversary of Ray's passing, and I've not been feeling anything. It's like I've just been feeling weird and not being able to express anything. And what I got is that I'm really broken inside and are feeling that way. And it just seems like it's been coming out in my knee. It's crazy. But
Wow. Connie, and the thing that you said about what you're going to do for these other people, his children or whatever, you're going to try and help them through this time. That's how we'll heal our loneliness. That I mean, it's so beautiful for you to say, "This is my broken heart."
It is. It's very wise.
That is so profound.
Mm-hmm.
And the way out is, let me help somebody else with that. That's always how he's empowering us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
right.
you'll find, I mean, I'm going to help with that reference, but you're going to find something to help others. And that's how we're always helped, is by helping others.
So, Connie, you mentioned that you had trouble with sentences 3 and 4.
Right.
I'd like to address 4 because I understand that one. But Timothy and I both wrestled with that one this morning, 3. It's like we can say what we think it might mean, but let's look at 4. Miracle worker must have a genuine respect for true cause and effect as a necessary condition for the miracle to occur. We have to recognize the power of our thoughts.
The cause relates to the thoughts.
The cause is thought. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Now to look at 3, knowing that we are not entirely sure what it means. Otherwise, a miracle will be necessary to set the mind itself straight. In other words, I need a miracle in my mind, a circular process that would not foster the time collapse. Why that works, I don't know. What would you have to say?
It's just again, when we turn to guidance, when we turn to the Holy Spirit, when we turn to God, and we're upset with the world, our tendency is going to be, change that situation. Yeah. Without recognizing I made it up. So what we have to recognize before we can accept the miracle, which is the answer, we have to understand I'm doing it to myself.
I am empowered to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm making it.
Yeah.
And then if I don't acknowledge that, then the miracle I'm asking will be, how can I change the world
Right.
instead of how can I change what I made up?
Mm-hmm.
That's as close as I can come on it, because it's confusing, because he does say you do need a miracle
Yeah. Right.
to change it. But I think what he's saying is, prior to that, before you can really accept the power of a miracle, you have to accept the power of your thoughts.
Right.
And that's why we keep doing the course, because we do change our mind. The world may not change, those people may not change, but we change.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Hope that helps.
any comments on that? And then there's another really important sentence in that paragraph I want to talk about. But does anybody want to weigh in on that third sentence or fourth one, or anything really?
Well, I wondered too whether the time collapse, like I really experienced once I got the broken heart, it's like everything got simpler.
Yeah. Yeah.
It-
You know, we're
'cause I-
gonna. We probably won't get to it today, but the meaning of the Last Judgment talked about, which is the last section in this chapter, talks about how the miracle is a device for shortening time, and there was discussion that you could read about in Absence from Felicity or the text or any of these others about the celestial speed up. In other words, Jesus said to Helen, things are getting worse. Things are going backward for humanity. We need something new, and that's why this course came about. And he called it a celestial speed up.
Right, but what he says throughout this whole thing,
Yeah.
right, is the truth of who you are cannot be kept away from you forever. You
Yeah,
are
yeah.
going to come back to the truth
Everyone
of who
will.
you are. And that, but the miracle then, the course and any spiritual tradition, is just a means of saving time.
Right.
Because first of all, you never left truth. And second, you're going to get back to it. The only question is how much time do you want to spend in suffering
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
before you get back?
Right.
So that's the time collapse he's talking about. There is no reason for us to continue to suffer.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what can practically be accessible to me.
And so Connie's example of recognizing, so we say broken heart, it means, you know, a sense of loss, a sense of lack, a sense of need. It's, you took back the cause. You recognized that the cause was in your mind, in your being, and not in the knee. And therefore things got easier or better. Did your knee feel any better?
Yes, my knee has felt better. It's been amazing.
All right, great.
I know it.
And I wondered too, it's the what you just said, it's not even a real thought. It's, you know, when I say I have a broken heart and it's sadness, but I make that all up.
Yeah, yeah.
I make everything up.
Yeah, that's our freedom. That's our power.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
that was beautiful. So before we leave this, I just want you to, so what the Course is always talking about is the equality of the sonship, of the members of the sonship.
Mm-hmm.
There's just total equality.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Jesus begins to teach us that
Mm-hmm.
is showing that we're equal to him.
Mm-hmm.
So this first sentence is one to understand. 2:1, I cannot leave your mind, I cannot let you leave your mind unguarded, or you will not be able to help me. So what that does, that immediately empowers us, and it turns around from Jesus save me, which we want to say, but he's saying to us, I need your help.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I can't help you until you take these steps of recognizing how powerful your thoughts are.
right. Yeah.
So he's making us equal to him in that this is a collaborative venture between us and him and us and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that equality we got to get at.
He says he's our brother. So
That save me,
go
Go
ahead.
that save me mentality that you were talking about, that save me mentality, that is just like so rampant in our society.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like somebody needs to fix this situation. We're not responsible for it, but it's just so obvious when you put it like that. And Connie, that was so beautiful.
Yeah, it's the whole victim mentality. We don't like to recognize that we think like a victim a lot. Whenever we think there's nothing I can do about it, we're thinking victim thoughts.
Right.
I'm powerless. He's saying everything you experience comes from a thought. Whose thought is it? My thought. Who can change my thought? Only me. We are powerful. And it's all about our experience, not necessarily the thing itself, not necessarily. For example, Connie could have had a sense of peace and well being and her knee still hurt, or we could have a riot in Sedona and still feel at peace. In other words, it's not about the situation, it's about changing the thought that produces my experience of the situation.
Right.
And that's where the power is.
Right. But our first initial gambit, when we turn to God with all the love and devotion and care for you, God, I want to do your will. Our first gambit is change the situation out there.
Yeah, stop the riot.
Make my dream be real.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
And you're just going to do that. I mean, you have a body, you're going to knee jerk to that, but it's not necessary.
So Dale, I wonder if you could read up to sentence 8. We're going to stop at that point for your comments, and then you can continue on to the end because it's just a really long paragraph.
Okay, sure. Both miracles and fear come from thoughts. Well, okay, that's saying a lot right there. I mean, it's what we've been talking about, but I think we all have to come to grasp and understand it and choose to understand that, or we're always going to be stuck in the same spot. That's kind of a basic fundamental.
Yeah.
If you are not free to choose one, you would also not be free to choose the other. Yep. By choosing a miracle, you have rejected fear, if only temporarily. And that sentence means a lot to me because there's sometimes things are so fearful that I'm looking at, I can only do it for an instant. But one of the things I think I've learned from this course is that that's all it takes, is that holy instant.
Yeah.
You have been fearful of everyone and everything. You're afraid of God, of me, and of yourself. You have misperceived or miscreated us and believe in what you have made. You would not have done this if you were not afraid of your own thoughts. Well, I know with the background I grew up in, and Timothy, you mentioned a minute ago about Jesus being our brother. That has been a real revelation for me in the shifting of my thought of my relationship with Jesus, because it was a very mixed and really stupid and scary message that was given to us. It made no sense and that's why I turned away from organized religion totally for so long, is because it made no sense. But most of it centered around my relationship with Jesus. And really, factually, I just rejected all that and him for a long, long time until I felt there's something I'm missing. So I took a different approach to it. But that's been the biggest thing. One of the biggest things I've gotten from this course is correctly understanding my relationship with Jesus. And I might add something. Leanne and I were talking about this just the other day, that, you know, as a parent, we'll hear our children say, well, you think you're smarter than me. Well, no, really, my kids are very smart. I'm not smarter than them. But I always told them, well, I've lived longer than you, and I have experience that you don't have. And that's the function of parents, is to guide your children with the life we lived. And I kind of look at Jesus that same way now, as has gone before us and understands things we don't. So that's my thoughts.
Well, thank you. Anybody else want to comment on that first part? How about you go on, Dale, to the end of that paragraph?
Okay. The fearful must miscreate because they misperceive creation. When you miscreate, you are in pain. Well, it goes back to the first sentence. The cause and effect principle now becomes a real expediter, though only temporarily. Actually, cause is a term properly belonging to God, and his effect is his Son. Okay, let's stop right there. In Son, it means we're all created in the same image, in God's image. Is that the correct meaning of Son?
I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah.
This entails a set of cause and effect relationships totally different from those you introduced into miscreation. The fundamental conflict in this world, then, is between creation and miscreation. All fear is implicit in the second, and all love in the first. The conflict is therefore one between love and fear. I guess there's a lot to say, but very simply, it just comes down to what decision we make in the moment when something is put in front of us. How are we going to respond? Yeah. One of the things I was taught, and not in the spiritual sense, but as a kid, we always have a choice when something presents us. We can't control it, but we can decide how we respond. Mm-hmm. And the same thing is here too, exactly the same thing spiritually. We just have to make a choice and be aware if we're of discomfort to make a different decision.
Exactly.
That's it. And he in 6:1, in terms of the Son idea, in 6:1, which we're going to read, he says in this section, paragraph 6, it should be especially noted that God has only one Son.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of part wholes, but we're equal in
we're
that.
All one being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this idea of the conflict is therefore between love and fear. Mm-hmm. That's where he says we'll learn how powerful our decisions are when we boil them down to these fundamental things, mm-hmm. like it's either love or it's fear. Mm-hmm. But typically what we do is ask for guidance on, should I go to this store or should I do this? Mm-hmm. Or should I be a conservative or should I be a Republican? Or whatever that, on this level, mm-hmm. we don't really see the power of our decisions because nothing really changes within inside of us. Uh-huh. So when we recognize
because we're making decisions of effects.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we understand there's this thought of fear that I'm making up, or there's this thought of love that God gave me, mm-hmm. then when I make that decision, then I see the power of my decision, mm-hmm. which is all that he's training us to do, because we decided to separate from mm-hmm. love. And that's what we keep hiding.
Right. One of the things that I saw this time, I don't think I've ever seen it before, but as Dale was reading this, I recognized that what he's saying, one of the things he's saying is that God extends himself out into creation. And that's what we're doing, where our thought is extended into making, into experience.
Or creating.
Yes. Creating or making the world out here. But when we're miscreating, we think we're separate from everything we experience. We think that my thoughts, have nothing to do with what happens on the street, in the country, to my pet. It has nothing to do with my thoughts. That is the real separation, is giving all causality to something outside myself and denying that I have power. Therefore, I am a victim of the world.
So he describes that as private thoughts,
mm-hmm.
right?
In the workbook, yep.
They're your thoughts. They're only true for you,
mm-hmm.
right? And since they're only true for you, that's why he can change them.
I can't even follow that, so I don't want to comment on that.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on this paragraph? Alrighty, then we are on Eric. Eric, could you read 4, please?
Yeah. It has already been said that you believe you cannot control fear because you yourself made it, and your belief in it seems to render it out of your control. Yet any attempts to resolve the error through attempting the mastery of fear is useless. In fact, it asserts the power of fear by the very assumption that it need be mastered. The true resolution rests entirely on mastery through love. In the interim, however, the sense of conflict is inevitable, since you have placed yourself in a position where you believe in the power of what does not exist. Wow. So we're believing in something that doesn't really exist, and we're believing it's got power to make us afraid. And God's not going to take that fear away from us because it's not part of anything to do with him. It's us that's created it. But that's interesting, the bit that says you can't overcome your fear by trying to master it.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of people try to do these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got a fear of something, and then what you've got to do is you've got to make yourself master it.
Right.
But it seems like maybe if you do that and you seemingly you can overcome a fear of something, then another fear appears in another aspect of your life.
Yes.
So maybe
Right.
you can never really overcome all your fears, can you?
No,
In that way,
that's right.
except as it says, by love. That's the only way of overcoming fear.
Right.
Um,
Right. So what did he say about fear? Why don't we have to master through? Why is mastery through fear not the issue
Of fear.
of fear? Because he already said, I've already indicated that I know that fear doesn't exist.
Mhm.
That's why we don't need to master it. But that's what we keep looking to do. Is I'm fearful. I need to manage this fear somehow.
Yeah.
And he's just saying it's nothing.
Right.
The only thing that's there is the loving miracle and accepting that.
Right. When you and I were studying this, you mentioned how that goes right back to the, do we call it the introduction? Yeah, the introduction of the course where it says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing unreal exists. Fear is unreal. Even the emotion of fear, as well as what I project out as fearful, he says he understands it does not exist, but we don't. But we take it on faith and make another choice.
Well, we wouldn't be doing this had we not done that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd see that we change our minds and the world may not necessarily change.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why but the idea that it doesn't exist is not something that's supposed to be esoteric or metaphysically too difficult for you to deal with. You just have to say at this moment, because what he's saying is you made a will that you think opposes God. You
Mhm.
made a will that denies love.
We did this.
And then you have guilt and fear.
Right.
And then the way to deal with that is let me deal with the guilt, let me deal with the fear somehow, let me even pray to God to get rid of the fear and the guilt, when you have to just recognize I made that up
Mm-hmm.
by myself,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no such thing as by myself alone because I'm part of everything.
Part of the one sonship.
So that's why we
Mhm.
don't try and heal through the mastery of fear. We just accept the love.
And so remember those things at the beginning in chapter 1, I think it was, where there was all of that information about abundance and lack? And fear is a lack of love.
Yeah.
Love is abundance. Love is the being of God extended.
Right.
And lack of that is fear. So fear is lack. Fear is nothing. Fear is a zero.
Right. But he's not saying he's saying do not deny the seeming presence of fear.
Right.
That's your basic mistake. You keep making it up, then you deny it.
Hide it.
And you've got some maladaptive way to deal with it by change the world and have God change the world. Right?
Yeah.
when all you have to do is see, I'm the one who's making this up.
Yeah, I don't have to be afraid. I can choose love instead. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Did we finish that paragraph, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read the first half of this paragraph.
So I just wanted to finish that on
Oh,
fear.
I'm sorry.
So he's saying, don't deny its presence, but you have to you have to give that fear to the Holy Spirit and have the Holy Spirit translate the fear, which is a defense against love, into a call for love.
Right,
And that's why we don't have to deal with the fear,
right.
because it's really a call for for the love we think is gone.
We don't have to deal with it in the sense of mastering it, but we have to look at it.
Right.
Like it said, know that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. So choose love. When we're feeling fear, ask for love. Choose love. Yeah. Okay, so paragraph 5. Nothing and everything cannot coexist. To believe in one is to deny the other. Fear is really nothing and love is everything. Whenever light enters darkness, the darkness is abolished. I really like that analogy. I know it's in practically every spiritual system I've looked at. The idea that divinity is light. And wherever light enters, there is no darkness, because darkness is not a real thing. It's just a lack, just like fear.
And so instead of struggling with fear, if I accept the miracle on faith, that there's a miracle for just this very specific situation, right? Then I'm not dealing with the fear anymore. I'm just accepting the love.
Not dealing with the darkness anymore. Yeah, right. What you believe is true for you. This is something that carries through this idea. You always have to be careful when he's talking about that it's true for you. It's just like, that doesn't mean it's true. It means we heartily believe that it's true. In this sense, the separation has occurred, and to deny it is merely to use denial inappropriately. However, to concentrate on error is only a further error. The initial corrective procedure is to recognize temporarily that there is a problem. I'm afraid, or I'm angry, or I'm resentful, or whatever it is, but only as an indication that immediate correction is needed. I think Dale brought that up earlier.
Right.
Go ahead. The only reason we would have an upset turn into something positive is to show us there's a need for correction. So we don't want to value fear or value guilt except as a signal. Hey, I need to change my mind. This establishes...
So the idea of immediate is important there.
Okay.
Since fear doesn't exist, we demonstrate that when we have an immediate solution in accepting the miracle. Because the ego's always making the solution in the future.
Right.
When you change, when the world, then I'm going to be, it's always in the future.
Right.
Where he's saying there is not a moment
right.
in which you cannot experience love.
Right. It's an indication that immediate correction is needed.
That's the whole deal.
This establishes a state of mind in which the atonement can be accepted without delay. I need help right now. Right now. And when we say that, not later, oh God, I know you're going to help me later. It's going to happen sometime that I'll be relieved from this fear. No, right now I'm in fear and I want an immediate correction.
You know, he turns that around from the biblical thing where you turn to God and go, how long, oh Lord, how long? And what is sin? He says, how long?
Oh, Holy Son of God.
Are you going to hang on to sin? How long?
Yeah, right. Right. Okay, so when I'm willing to recognize that this fear means an immediate correction is needed, then my mind is going to be open to accept the atonement without delay. It should be emphasized, however, that ultimately no compromise is possible between everything and nothing. That was the first sentence. So don't try to have both love and fear. I'm afraid for you because I love you. Something's wrong with that picture. I'm afraid that this will happen to me because I love myself. Something's wrong with that picture. We'll learn more.
Well, it's a process, right?
Yes, it is a process. So any comments on that paragraph so far? We haven't heard from Laura yet. Don't have to. You'll be reading next anyway. So any more thoughts on this paragraph? Okay, then let's start with 11, and it is Laura's turn.
Did you finish?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Time is essentially a device by which all compromise in this respect can be given up. It only seems to be abolished by degrees because time itself involves intervals that does not exist. Miscreation made this necessary as a corrective device. The statement, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life."
Okay, I'll be about 20 minutes.
Let me go back into that sentence again. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. The statement, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life," needs only one slight correction to be meaningful in this context. He gave it to his only begotten Son.
Well, the emphasis is on the two.
He gave it to his only begotten Son.
The world.
Mm-hmm.
The real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what Laura has to say about this.
Yeah, I think I'm missing what he's trying to say here in the correction of that statement.
Okay. So does anybody else want to take a stab at it?
Your question is about the restatement of the problem. For God so loved the world. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, how he rephrases it. I guess I don't know why I'm being dense. I'm not picking up what he's putting down.
Well, the difference isn't the difference that he gave the world to his Son versus
that he gave the Son to the world.
Son to the world, right?
Yeah.
See, he wouldn't give the Son, the Savior, the salvation to the world that we made up, which is what we're trying to do, is save God. We turn to God and say, "Save my world that I made up." Only we don't say it's my world. We say it's the world.
Right.
Right. And that's where he's saying that needs to be corrected, because what you made, a world, God remade.
He remade it.
In the real world,
yes,
where fear is just a call for love.
Right.
Or just the miracles of love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it goes back to our initial thing is protect my dream. Protect the world that I made up. And he's saying...
That's what ego is asking.
Yeah, that's when we're identified with the ego. That's what it's asking, is protect my dream that I made up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying you're just avoiding the fact that it's a function of your private thoughts, which have no meaning.
Any other thoughts on that paragraph? Then let's go on to Leanne for paragraph 6.
It should especially be noted that God has only one Son. If all his creations are his sons, everyone must be an integral part of the whole sonship. Sonship is its oneness transcends the sum of all its parts. However, this is obscured as long as any of its parts is missing. This is why the conflict cannot ultimately be resolved until all the parts of the sonship have returned. Only then can the meaning of wholeness in the true sense be understood. Any part of the sonship can believe in error or incompleteness if he chooses. However, if he does so, he is believing in the existence of nothingness. The correction of this error is the atonement. Well, where one goes, we all must go. So we can't leave our brothers behind.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so, sometimes that requires an awful lot of mind training and bridging, because it doesn't mean that we all have to have the same likes, dislikes, beliefs,
Right.
way of living or anything.
Right.
We just have to embrace that we are all children of God, no matter whether we choose to be a lawyer that, some people see him as corrupt because they're making a ton of money, or, someone who chooses to be homeless or is homeless.
Yeah.
So we're all in this together. And
Yeah.
that's sometimes a hard one, I think, for most people to discern between. Doesn't mean we all have to behave the same, but we all need to recognize love.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's personally, that's why I believe military training is so effective. The idea that you leave nobody behind.
Yeah.
And that's how we're maintaining our innocence, because we're making others guilty. We're leaving them outside of the atonement without seeing that we feel left out if we're making them be left out.
Right. Yeah, that is what happens.
Yeah, I almost use the example of military since I have a military background, but I mean, it is all about, it didn't always feel like you're all on the same team, but at the end of the day, we all needed to operate together to accomplish the task at hand.
Yeah. So, the word ego is the Latin word for I, me. And there is no I in team. And we're all on the same team here.
And there's an I in the middle of sin.
There's an I in the middle of sin. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Any thoughts about that paragraph?
Yeah, I would just say that right now is a very easy time, particularly in the United States with the elections, to put this into, because we can disagree fundamentally on the most base sense with somebody about policies and things they're doing, but we do have a choice that we can still see them in love.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
And to me, and believe me, I have strong beliefs about things, but I can tell if I can say I disagree with what they're saying or that's really dumb. But on an intellectual level, I just don't believe it. But I can tell that I still love them, who they are, and as a creation of God and as my brother. Right. So it's very, particularly in this United States today, it's really easy to recognize this, or at least try to put it in practice.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional gambit, right, is around that is love the sinner, not the sin. Or how does that go?
Well, in the chorus, it's love the dreamer and not the dream.
Not the dream.
Yeah. I like that a lot. It's
but he's saying you can love them and still see them as sinful.
We don't want to do that.
I know, but that's the traditional thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you see them sinful, but, love them anyways.
Yeah, no.
If you're seeing them sinful, you're seeing them as without love.
And it's sin in our minds. And he's asking us, clear that whole thought out.
Yeah, that's what Dale said.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just supposed to be looking for the Christ in them, the Son of God in every person. That's what we all share. All right, we've got just one more paragraph, and that's for Timothy.
I have already briefly spoken about readiness, but some additional points might be helpful here. Readiness is only the prerequisite for accomplishment. The two should not be confused. So here's where it's so important to see how guilt can come in, even when we're trying to do the course, right? So we recognize I'm making up fear. There is no fear. There's just love. Yeah. But I still seem stuck in fear. Yeah. And then I judge myself as being guilty because I'm not doing the course right.
Yeah. We got to drop that.
Right. So readiness, don't deny that you're ready just because you're not manifesting it at the moment.
Right.
It's really important.
Right.
That's what he says. Don't confuse readiness with accomplishment.
Right.
But don't deny that you are ready. You're here. You are doing this course.
Mhm.
You are trying to change your mind. And it may not seem to be the case, but don't make yourself guilty
Right.
just because you're not doing it in that moment. You are ready.
Right. We're ready or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. The two should not be confused. As soon as a state of readiness occurs, there's usually some degree of desire to accomplish, but it is by no means necessarily undivided. The state of readiness does not imply more than a potential for a change of mind. Confidence cannot develop until mastery has
Fully.
been confidence cannot develop fully until mastery has been accomplished. We have already attempted to correct the fundamental error that fear can be mastered and have emphasized that the only real mastery is through love. Readiness is only the beginning of confidence. You may think this implies that an enormous amount of time is necessary between readiness and mastery. But let me remind you that time and space is under my control.
Pretty cool, huh?
Well, it means to me, I don't have to let this upset I have about the world make me lose my peace for any bit longer, because Jesus is saying, I have control over all time and space. And I mean, he doesn't say it here, but I will set up the opportunities for you.
Yes, he does say
as
that.
long
other
as you're
places.
ready
Yeah.
to share miracles with somebody else.
Right.
And that was the point where Marianne Williamson's went. Remember, she said, oh, Jesus, send me somebody that I can practice forgiveness with. And then she thought of somebody and then said,
Oh,
no,
no,
not him. So readiness, and so he's given us this beautiful space,
Yeah.
saying, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it covered.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we can't. There's no situation where you have to feel like a victim. I got time
Right.
and space. But just to understand that readiness is just the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And he's got time and space.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to control our thoughts.
That's it.
I mean, that is.
Well, it's up to us to choose
Yeah.
to have a miracle change our thoughts instead of change the situation.
Instead of changing the situation, yeah. And then we may change the situation, but it's thoughts come first, cause and effect. The cause is our thoughts, the effect is the world that we experience. So I think we should probably wrap it up here. I'd be interested in any of your thoughts, and everyone's thoughts about what we've done so far.
As I was listening to everybody today and reading the lesson, it kept occurring to me, and it's just me, maybe it's probably different for everybody else. It's been a metaphysical leap for me, and for me it's been important to do this, to understand that what we're seeing, that unless God created it, it's not real.
Right.
That helps me when I'm looking at something that's presenting itself to me, to deal with that. And mastery through love. Well, what does that mean? And this may be just my thought processes, but I thought I would mention it, that every time I get in one of these situations, I go through that little mantra that if God didn't create it, it's not real. And it seems to be a shift that happens inside that gives me a different perception of what I'm looking at. So I thought I'd just add that if it's helpful to somebody.
That's beautiful.
It
Thank
is.
you very much.
And that's part of what we're really encouraging, is for everybody to find that little something in that moment where you can make the shift.
Right.
In the moment, make that shift.
Yeah.
And sometimes I use this lesson, sometimes I use that, but everybody's own style has to develop.
Yeah.
Where
Mhm.
what do I use to bring me back? Okay, that's what brings me
Yeah.
back. Brings me back right now. And discernment between, does that sound like love? That
Yeah.
violence, does that sound like love? That
Right.
conflict, does that sound like love? No.
Does this upset within me feel like love?
Right.
No.
And we
Yeah.
have the ability to make that discernment between
Yeah.
love and fear.
Sure. Yeah. You know, this whole idea of cause and effect really, I didn't get it for the longest time. And what really cemented it for me is I took a class with Pathways of Light. They do, they pair you up with a teacher on the phone, and they have a booklet, and you read and you fill out. And a lot of what they do is you write what you read. You're reading it in the course, and they skillfully have picked out what it is, and you just write it. And that was a really powerful technique for me, to just copy down what it says in the course. It really made a difference. So I just thought I'd pass that technique on.
Yeah. Those are all those different learning modalities, right?
Yeah.
Auditory,
Auditory,
sensate,
yeah.
all those emotions, images.
Mhm.
Everybody's different in that.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for being here today. Eric, we'll probably miss you next week, but I know you're going to be in a wonderful place.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that last paragraph, actually.
Yeah, please.
Oh, please, yeah.
The relationship between confidence, mastery, and readiness.
Uh-huh.
So it's like you're not going to have confidence until you've mastered something, and yet you've got to have the readiness to get into it and give it a go. Otherwise, you're never going to get anywhere.
Right.
You're never going to build up anywhere towards mastery until you have some readiness.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's been a case of, well, I'm not ready to do this yet, so I've not got any confidence. But it's like, well, you've got to get some readiness from somewhere.
Yeah,
That's the
no,
starting
right.
point,
Yeah.
You just jump in and be willing to make mistakes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Robert Perry was good with the people that were in some of our course groups where they had been sexually abused, really, really a big way in their bringing up. And he really gave them permission to say, you may not be able to handle that one right now. Maybe you can't handle it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can't quite get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of the skills we're developing in loving ourselves, is
Mhm.
giving ourselves permission
Mm-hmm.
that it's a mistake. It's not a sin.
Right.
And I'm ready.
Uh-huh.
And
I'm ready to learn.
And that's all I need to do is be ready.
Yeah.
And the mastery will come because who has control of time and space?
Jesus does. Yeah.
Or whatever.
Our elder brother.
Or whatever.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
And Dell and I will be gone next week as well because we're babysitting grandkids.
Oh,
Alrighty.
my. Okay. We'll have a small class, but you're so
Yeah.
welcome to be here.
Yep.
Okay.
Do the reading anyways.
Yeah,
There'll be
please
a-
do, and then you'll see it on YouTube.
We'll have a surprise quiz, pop quiz at some point in this.
If one of the kids is sleeping, I may let Dale jump on.
That won't happen, Tom.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need both of us.
Yeah.